Good evening, Jakarta. I can see Shita and Francis Abji. Hello. Hi. Good. Great to see you. And we are starting the second monthly briefing with our friends in Jakarta and here in Geneva and with online community. It is here in Geneva is a holiday time, therefore it's very quiet. There is no traffic jam. Buses are quite empty. And but it seems, although it's a holiday time, it seems that we had really busy month of March with so many activities and developments, which we will summarize today in our monthly briefing. And we will follow the usual pattern. We will go through the Internet Governance Barometer for March, for the month of March, discussing what are the activities that got into importance and what are the activities which had less importance. Then we'll hear from our friends in Jakarta with a quick overview of on the regional dynamics, let's say 5 minutes, and later on we'll hear from Rio de Janeiro hub, which will tell us what's going on in Latin America in this field. Now, as you can see, Harvey, next, please. The month of March was very busy. There was a Human Rights Council 31st session in Geneva, focusing heavily on the question of privacy and data protection. Therefore, Internet Freedom Festival in Valencia, African Domain Name Forum, very important meeting of ICANN 55th meeting, and we will discuss it in more details. And you can see the list of the activities during the month of March. Next. Next. You're familiar with barometers indicating increasing pressure, the same pressure, and lower pressure. Next. And next, please. Good morning, Dee. You have been probably following the main developments related to data protection and privacy. There was a lot of visibility, and it was one of the first cases where the general digital discussion got into the public focus of global public worldwide, and particularly in the United States. What happened during the month, it was a build-up after developments in February. As you know, there was a San Bernardino terrorist attack, and there was the court request basically asking the Apple to submit to unlock the data which was owned by one of the terrorists involved in the San Bernardino terrorist attack. Apple refused to follow this order, and then we had a quite heated debate, and on the 4th of March, Apple received the support from Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Cisco, and other internet companies. There was then a request later on. Apple says that the US Constitution forbids it to comply with the court order. And in quite an interesting anticlimax turn, on the 22nd of March, FBI informed us that they may have found a solution to access the data this iPhone, which was owned by the terrorists in San Bernardino attack. Now, directly linked to security, next, Harvin, is the question of privacy and human rights. As you can see, and we have been discussing it, here we have a really strong interplay between security, privacy and data protection, and the commercial interests. And Apple FBI case dominated privacy and security discussion. And we will, what was very interesting after this information on the 22nd of March is that, in a way, FBI informed us, yes, we have a technical means, and we have managed to crack the protection of this iPhone. Shifting discussion from the previous debate about security versus privacy, what is the right balance, to basically informing us, hey guys, we have a technical means. If you don't want to obey the court order, we can do that. Now, as a few commentators indicated, It is a solution for this concrete case and the challenge for the San Bernardino investigation, but issue has not been resolved. We will be having the similar dilemma and similar discussions on privacy versus security, or privacy and security coming into the focus. Now, this debate and overall discussion on Apple versus FBI dynamics triggered us to start some sort of Socratic debate with the involvement of three personalities. One protecting the privacy interest, second one protecting the human rights interest, and third one protecting commercial interest. And Arvin will show us in a few minutes what was that dynamics, and you can visit it on our website. Now, the discussion has been centered mainly on around the United States and developments in this concrete case, but it is very likely to have the broader impact, and we can expect similar discussions in Europe and in other countries, because it is coming to the core function of in a way state of protecting security on the certain territory, on the core interest of the private sector to get trust of their users, and third, on the interest of users to protect their privacy. And what we have been discussing over the last few months is that it is a unique case, because nobody has a perfect sort of argument and perfect position. Then you cannot have in this discussion good and bad guys. Everybody has legitimate interest, and what is also important, all key players have quite a strong weaknesses, because nobody can impose its own will easily on the other three players. Therefore, it could be a basis for discussion. Governments have a legitimate interest to provide security on certain territory, on the national territory. Internet companies have a legitimate interest to operate and to have a trust of their customers, and citizens have a legitimate interest to protect their privacy. And this will be quite an interesting dynamics in the forthcoming months. Now, in parallel to Apple FBI case, there was a similar debate in UK Parliament over Snooper Charter. It remains controversial due to the data retention requirements. The Special Rapporteur on Privacy presented his first report, which is more mapping report indicating what will be discussed in the forthcoming period, and we can expect more substantive report for the next meeting. Then there was a French data protection regulator fines Google 100,000 euros for failing to extend the listing of search results across all of the Google domain names. As you know, according to the right to privacy, right to be forgotten ruling of the European Court of Justice, in the first phase, it was requested to the link a website from the Google search in specific national authorities, like Google Spain, Google France. Now, French is requesting from Google to the link those people who have a right to be the link from the listing in Google search from any search engine, including Google.com or Google, let's say Brazil, whatever could be accessed by users from France. And this is the first decision when they find basically Google with 100,000 euros. Now, one interesting development which happened during this long month, as you remember, our last briefing was on 24th of February, was a Privacy Shield decision. As you know, the European Court of Justice declared that previous arrangement, Safe Harbor Agreement, wasn't in accordance to European law. And the negotiators, European Union and US negotiators, started finding the solution, replacement for the Safe Harbor Agreement. Safe Harbor Agreement was in a way patching the arrangement, which basically bridged high level of privacy protection in Europe and relatively lower requirements for privacy protection in the United States. And through Safe Harbor Agreement, European citizens were supposed to have the similar level of protection of their data, even if data is stored in the data servers in the United States. Obviously, it was challenged, and European Union and the United States had to find some solution. And it was quite what we heard from the reports from the negotiation. It was really hectic negotiations because the deadline was very tight, and they had to negotiate. They came with a Privacy Shield solution. privacy shield solution should provide a bit stronger protection of the data of European citizens, including a joint review mechanism and establishment of the ombudsman within the State Department, US State Department. Now, as you can expect, there were quite a few critical views, but what is the most important is the decision of the Article 29 working group, which should be released on the 11th and 12th of April. Therefore, they have to decide, or they have to indicate if they are satisfied with the arrangement which was made between the United States and European Commission, if it is in accordance to the European law. It will be released during the meeting on the 12th and 30th of April. Therefore, we'll know soon what is the verdict from the Article 29. Okay, this is then set related to security, privacy, and human rights with really long-term impact. This issue will be discussed in the forthcoming period on international level and on the national level. Article 29 Working Party review is quite important for the future discussion, especially on the transatlantic traffic of data, which is the most important for the internet economy currently. Next. On net neutrality, we have an interesting game. The mobile operators in the United States starting challenging FCC ruling. FCC ruled on net neutrality protection earlier this year, and you see the telecom operators started offering zero-rate services one by one, basically trying to see how far FCC will go or how they would react to the challenge to net neutrality. Basically, through offering these services, they're challenging the ruling of the Federal Communication Commission in the United States. And we're still waiting for that. Another important economy, internet economy, India, is also reviewing, conducting comprehensive review of net neutrality, and it should be released within the next few months. As you know, India banned the free basic service by Facebook, which challenged the net neutrality. But now they decided to have a proper review of net neutrality mechanisms and to have a proper policy. Those are two major developments. United States challenge for the FCC ruling by telecom operators, and India trying to establish new net neutrality policy. Next. European Commission basically, as you know, is facing real challenging with what is called sharing economy. This is the code word for Uber and other companies. And they released the first finding, basically stating the obvious, that there is a widespread use of geo-blocking software in Europe, in e-commerce, which is a real problem, but everybody more or less knew that. But they indicated that they will basically address the key question, sharing economy, in June. Therefore, European Commission should release their report on the status of the sharing economy in June. Therefore, they bought some time. As you know, it is real hot potato for many countries, the regulation of Uber and the other platform services. India also introduced so-called, or announced introduction of so-called Google tax. And as you can see, they basically suggest that there should be 6 to 8% levy if the provider of the service is a foreign entity without a permanent establishment in India. Basically, they want most likely to have a Google and other companies, Facebook, to have their some sort of legal incorporation in India and to be taxable. Therefore, as we noticed during these briefings, there is a strong move towards tapping into the internet economy or e-commerce by many countries worldwide, and India is now joining. France, as you know, had quite a few proposals of the internet taxes, and the other countries. Next. On the global IG architecture, the major development is new appointment of IGF multi-stakeholder advisory group, and the new chair, Lynn Santarmer from the United States, who is coming from technical community. And this is another new development. In the past, most of the chairs of the MAG were coming from the government. Now we have Lynn Santarmer, former CEO of ISOC coming from technical community, and the partial membership of the MAG was also renewed. They have quite an important task and quite a challenging task because, as you know, the IGF mandate was renewed in December, and now they have to really prepare good IGF meeting in Mexico, because everybody will be evaluating the future of IGF based on it. Next. For those of you who are involved here in the Geneva-based activities, you probably know that there is a lot of discussion on sustainable development. Whatever you discuss from the e-commerce, health, human rights, you have to have indication to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And there will be two crucial events, in particular for the relevant for the diplomats based in Geneva and from colleagues from developing countries. There is ongoing call for stakeholders to contribute on key issues related to achieving the SDGs, to feed into high-level thematic debate on achieving SDGs, which will be held in New York on the 21st of April. And also to prepare for the first multi-stakeholder forum on science, technology, and innovation in June. There is a process with the 10 members facilitation mechanism who are preparing this technological and scientific aspect of SDGs. Here we should just indicate that, as you know, the internet is not explicit SDGs. It's some sort of, we were referring to it as a ghost SDG, which is relevant for the implementation of all SDGs. And while internet wasn't very prominent in negotiation on SDGs per se, it will be now increasingly important in discussion on implementation of SDGs. And these two meetings will start the process. Therefore, it will come into discussion when we discuss education, health, and other specific SDGs. Next. On infrastructure, Voice One development in Morocco. Specific was that voice over IP services were blocked in Morocco, and there was an interesting explanation by telecom providers. They basically in their public statement said it wasn't us, it was the regulator who blocked the voice over IP, and they said we just obeyed the rulings of the regulator. Again, we have quite an important commercial discussion between telecom operators and others. The more voice over IP is used, the less income they have, and they are trying to find some sort of survival strategy. One important document is the Global Encryption Trend Study. You will have the links to all of these documents in the follow-up, which basically indicates that companies are increasingly encrypting their data in the cloud. There is a stronger there was a trend since the Snowden revelation, but it has been really picking up over the last year. There is more and more encryption, and much stronger encryption than in past. Google is in talks with the Indian telecom operators to kickstart the Loon project in India. You can see in this drawing there are quite a few balloons. As you know, Google decided to create this Wi-Fi system on the larger geographical territories by using balloons, which will be basically contain some sort of Wi-Fi in simplified way. Wi-Fi repeaters, which will be covering particular geographical area. Facebook opted for the drones. Therefore, we'll see who will win, drones or balloons. But they are starting the Loon project in India. Next. Jurisdiction and legal issue, preliminary opinion of European Court of Justice Advocate General, who basically ruled or suggests the ruling that operators of the public Wi-Fi's should not be responsible for infringement of the copyrights. That was a sort of ambiguous area. Therefore, if the, let's say, Geneva authorities establish the free Wi-Fi, I think they have quite a few in the city. According to the Advocate General, they are not responsible if somebody is basically accessing breaching the copyright regulation. That ruling can pave the way for the more public Wi-Fi hotspots in Europe, because there won't be the risk of the negative rulings. We already discussed the Snooper Charter over the question of access of surveillance, and here the question is also the jurisdiction, because it has a provision to establish extraterritorial jurisdiction for the UK authorities. It doesn't deal only with the surveillance in the United Kingdom, but also requests companies to provide the data to UK authorities for the users which are not based in the UK. Next. LANA Transition. During the last meeting in Marrakesh, ICANN board officially passed the 2 key documents on the LANA stewardship transition process and ICANN accountability recommendation to the representative of the US government. They have now to decide if the proposal fits the requirements that were announced on the 14th of March 2014 when the process was initiated, and which initiated this long discussion. US government has contracted Berkman Center at Harvard University to perform an independent review of the proposal by 30th of June. Therefore, as you know, we already discussed it, there was this process with the US government, mainly with the NTIA, National Telecommunication Authority, and there is also the question if the issue will be politicized and if the Congress will step up and play a more important role in the context of the presidential campaign, which I'm sure all of you are following. There is quite high likelihood that the issue will be further politicized, and we may have extension of the process beyond the 30th of September. This is basically predominant view of quite a few commentators on this issue. Next. Well, that was all about developments during the previous month. What we can expect in April. Quite a busy month in Geneva, but also worldwide. There will be Global Privacy Summit in Washington between 3rd and 6th of April. IETF meeting in Buenos Aires. 4th and 6th IGF Open Consultation and MAG meeting, preparation for the IGF, which will be held in November in Mexico. Launch of Council of Europe Strategy for the Right of Children in Sofia, 5th and 6th of April. 7th of April, Russian IGF. 16th, 18th, Open Geneva Hackathon. You know, the hackathons are becoming now quite popular. Important week on the 18th of April, UNCTAD e-commerce week. Therefore, there will be quite important discussion on the question of e-commerce and related issues of intellectual property, open data, facilitation of e-commerce, regulation and other issues. And next to it, it's also the WIPO conference on the global digital content market. Therefore, you can see there is a shift towards commercial issue and discussion on the commercial framework. There will be Southeastern European Dialogue on Internet Governance in Belgrade, and we will host an interesting event on 25th of April. Event will focus on technological innovation for digital policy issues. Therefore, we will discuss what type of the technological solution can address digital policy issues, focusing on 3 issues: overall internet architecture, A; B, domain name system; and 3, the question of privacy and security. And I would like to invite you to join us for this event. Next. At Geneva Internet Platform, we had a just-in-time webinar on Apple FBI case, encryption, privacy, and security on 17th of March, ongoing this Socratic dialogue on the Apple FBI case, a conversation on the core concepts and underlying assumptions of the case, played out by fictitious characters. And I just came from Belgrade yesterday, and the guys are preparing the theater play with the 3 fictitious characters: Privatus, Securitas, and Commercias. Bit of sort of like from Asterix and Obelix, bit of the Roman names. Therefore, they are preparing fictitious theater play, which will include these three characters. And I can tell you they were quite innovative during the brainstorming session. Upcoming events, we will have issue 9 of the Geneva Digital Watch newsletter, which will analyze this in details, these few issues: data protection and privacy, LANA transition and ICANN issues, analysis of the proposals, I invite you to consult it. On 25th of April, I already indicated we have technological innovation for digital policy issues in event. And 26th of April, next briefing on internet governance. That was more or less all from the summary of what's happened during the previous month, what we have ahead of us, and what has been going at the Geneva Internet Platform. I guess now this is the right moment either to hear the comments and to hear from our colleagues from Jakarta and Rio. Okay. Shita, are you online? It's quite... as you know, the Jakarta hub is meeting also in some sort of multi-stakeholder framework. The first meeting was held at the Ministry of Telecommunication, and the second meeting is held at ABGI. ABGI is Indonesian Internet Service Provider Association. Therefore, the host is shifting every month. Hello?
Hello, Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes, Rita, go ahead, please.
Okay, from Indonesia, we have 3 updates, also coming from the key stakeholders. So, my first update on regulation on the electronic information and transaction. One more update will be from government of Indonesia regarding OTT, and the last one will be from private sector with ABGI regarding the IP version 6. Update from my side first. This is an update of Indonesian Electronic Information and Transaction Law revision. After going through more than 6 years of advocacy and campaign activities by some elements of civil society in Indonesia, finally on March 2016, the Parliament and the government has expressed a permanent agreement to revise the Electronic Information and Transaction, or we call EIT law. The agreement was made through a series of meetings within the Parliament, the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, and the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights at the House of Representatives, Jakarta. The government proposed to reduce criminal penalty of Article 27 about online defamation from previously 6 years to 4 years. It is also emphasized that it needs to revert to the Indonesian penalty, which already prescribes the principle of defamation. Referring to the penalty is considered necessary because it is already prescribed.
Yeah, there is some problem. I don't know if it is encryption or... Okay, could we ask... Shita, could you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
We have a problem with the sound. I suggest that we try with Marilia with the update from Latin America, and we try once more with Jakarta to see if it is going to be a bit better. And if it doesn't work, we'll find some other solution. Marilia, good morning.
Okay.
Marilia, good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Urban. I trust that you can hear me well.
Oh, yes, definitely. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning to you all in Geneva. My name is Marilia Maciel, and I speak with you from the Center for Technology and Society in Brazil. I will join you briefly today. As you can see, I don't have my colleagues with me. Most of them have traveled to California to participate in RightsCon, which is a main event on internet regulation and human rights. So they are basically there. And the second reason is that this month in Brazil, as you can imagine, the topics that have occupied our national agenda were more related to the political crisis that we are facing. So I come with you today with basically 2 updates that I think are interesting, and these 2 updates are going to be discussed in our local hub that will take place right after this meeting. So we have 15 organizations that will join us today to discuss these 2 topics remotely. The first of them is cybercrime. Cybercrime is a topic that has gained prominence in Brazil in the last years, basically because of 3 events that have called attention from the parliamentarians in Brazil. The first of them was the discovery of a scam that had huge proportions in Brazil. The bank accounts of individuals were being hacked and money was being transferred to criminal organizations that sold arms and drugs online. The second issue was related to resources that were being sent to criminal organizations to traffic of human. Human trafficking has been increasing in Brazil 200% in recent years, according to the federal police. And the last of them was the publication of a report from Symantec, that mentioned that Brazil is losing per year $15 billion on cybercrime. So all these events have encouraged parliamentarians to start what we call here in Brazil a parliamentarian commission of investigation on cybercrimes that will lead the development of regulation in Brazil in this topic. They did not only discuss these cases, but they touched upon other topics such as child pornography, hate speech, terrorism, that was never an important issue in Brazil, but has become an important issue after the World Cup and the preparation for the Olympics. The Brazilian government is worried with that. And the use of encryption. I don't know if you are aware, but the Brazilian constitution has an explicit interdiction on anonymity, and they are interpreting that this would create a problem for Brazilian users to use encryption. So we are in this sort of battle to understand how encryption could be harmonized with the Brazilian legal scenario. So in the last months, the report from this commission is being published tomorrow. And in the next months, we will see probably a very important legal activity on developing regulations on cybercrime in Brazil. Cybercrime has also been a very important topic in the region. The Organization of American States has just published a report with a comprehensive assessment on cybercrime and peace and preparation for cyber conflict in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the report basically states that Latin America is hugely unprepared for a scenario of cyber conflict and also to fight cybercrime. There are several countries that are developing national strategies on cybercrime, but this is still an issue that Latin American countries need to tackle according to the Organization of American States. Very briefly, the second topic that was very prominent in our agenda this last month was access. Telecommunication providers, internet providers, they are studying the implementation of a data cap for fixed internet. That would mean that fixed internet, broadband internet, would work as mobile internet. When you reach a certain limit of data consumption, the companies will either cancel your connection or reduce the speed of connection. And this decision is already being started to be implemented by some providers, and it's being hotly challenged by consumer rights protection organizations and also by the federal public prosecutor. They are understanding that this goes against consumer rights and against human rights to have access to internet and freedom of information. But they are implementing that nevertheless, which is a sign of the strength that these companies have in Brazil. For us, there was a process of privatization, but still there are very few companies and they usually work together as a cartel. So this decision was being made by the three main providers together, and this is something that is going to be challenged not only in the judiciary, but probably in the context of discussions of the regulation of Marco Civil. As we discussed last month, Marco Civil is being regulated, especially when it comes to network neutrality, and probably this topic will appear on the discussions of the regulation of Marco Civil. So these are the two topics that were important for us this month, and I'll take the questions if you have it. Over to you.
Thank you, Marilia, for a really hot start of the year in Brazil. It's not only just the carnival in Rio, but there is quite a bit of political, if not carnival, political dynamics, which is making the start of the year quite hot. What is just noticeable, and it is a pity that we cannot hear clearly from Jakarta, but what is just noticeable is the shift in Brazil towards security-related issues. For a long time, the major focus in Brazil was on the issues like net neutrality, access, e-commerce, and the other issues. Now, as you indicated, there is in a way a shift towards a stronger security agenda related to cyber crime, or what you mentioned, just the increasing relevance of terrorism and use of the internet for the terrorist activities. Therefore, there is globalization in coverage of security issues in this way. Shall we try once more, Vishita, in Jakarta, to see if it works? Hello? Hello? Vishita, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me now? Okay. So yeah, continuing that the the government So after years of advocacy, the key main stakeholders,
can you hear me, Shri? Hello?
of justice has decided to revise the electronic information and transaction law. So,
Hello? We still have a problem with the sound. What I suggest is, if you don't mind, to send us the some sort of written summary statement, and then we can distribute to all participants, because we have the sound is breaking. We cannot hear you well. It's pity. Hello?
Okay.
Okay. What I suggest is that then we shift to therefore we'll receive the summary from Indonesia, what's going on in Indonesia and Asia. And now we will turn to our online audience, our online participants and colleagues here in room in Geneva with the questions and comments. Please go ahead. Roxana.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, all good. Now we have a very vivid discussion with people joining from everywhere around the world, from Burundi to Egypt to Santa Lucia. We can start with a comment that comes from Egypt, actually, on our free basic discussion. So Doa Shendi intervened with the following comment. I think the reason that India shut down the free basic services is because people find the service to be dedicated to serving Facebook rather than the users themselves, because the users cannot really search for knowledge as a basic service would imply. In Egypt, the reason to shut this service down is merely financial, as the Egyptian telecom wants the users to pay for using internet, and in particular for using Facebook. Otherwise, they won't get users to pay for the internet. And Doha also cites an agreement between the Egyptian telecoms dating back to 2003. So this agreement would say that in case of financial losses, Egypt would claim to shut down the services for national security purposes. So this is a merging of the financial and to a certain extent the political interest. And we started a short discussion around
Could I just quick comment on this point? Therefore, in India we have access to knowledge, according to the comment from Korea, and in Egypt we have financial reasons, but justified as national security. Is it correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead with the. Okay.
All for the moment.
Good. Do we have any question or comment here in the room? Okay, we have here. Sure, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Michael Kleiner from the Geneva Economic Development Office. I had a question about the taxation issue about internet transactions. First of all, how do you tax a company that's not located in your country? Is that taxes then on transactions? And how do you implement that? And then would those types of taxes, would that mean that geo-blocking devices would then be lifted if these taxes were in place? Is that link made by the service providers?
Well, yeah, that's basically the answer. What we're having now from FBI, Apple, and other cases, which is really worrying signal, and what your comment implied to, is that authorities and users are basically using the technical devices to address, in their view, shortcomings of the regulation. Therefore, basically, FBI goes and say, okay, if you don't want to unlock it according to legal rules, we'll do that. Privacy, internet users say, okay, if you cannot protect us as citizens, we'll protect ourselves through encryption. And it's sort of it is a bit worrying development. Now then governments are saying, okay, if we cannot claim the taxes for our budget and coffers, we will introduce the geo-blocking. That's the logic, which is be commented in discussion prior to this session, that we are coming in a way prior to Hammurabi. Hammurabi almost 24 centuries ago introduced the legal system with a clear idea that you don't get the justice in your hands, because there is some sort of legitimate authority which will protect the interests. Now what we're seeing in cyber is basically people and governments are taking geo-blocking for example, taxation issues. Now the answer to your question, according to Ottawa principles, of OECD, which is more or less the guidelines, which are, I would say, the major source, at least among OECD countries, and used internationally. There are certain rules that you can identify any transaction with the location of a seller and the buyer. And they are putting more on income side, and the United States complain about that VAT sort of taxation on the side of the buyer's sort of jurisdiction. Let's say if you're selling something from the United States and the buyer is in France, they should the VAT should be paid, or whatever taxation transaction on it is. Therefore, this is really open debate. But the answer is A, yes, geo-blocking is because there are no regulation. B, it is not it is quite regulated, because as long as you have somebody who is selling the service and he is company or individual under certain jurisdiction, and you have a buyer in the other jurisdiction, that transaction is relatively simple, legally speaking. Therefore, that's not the major problem. And the key instrument is Ottawa Principle. We can expect that this issue will be revisited during the next OECD digital economy meeting in Mexico in June this year. That will be quite important event. Cisse, please. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Cisse Khan from African Civil Society on the Information Society. Thank you for this monthly update. I just have one question about Apple FBI case. What will be the consequences in terms of generally for encryption, for iPhone encryption? What will be the consequences? As we know that the FBI has had a solution for this case, and there are some fears about possibility for other governments to operate in the same way. There is also a strong position of Apple saying that they will not unlock iPhones. So what would be, in your point of view, the consequences of this issue, which has been more or less solved, but in my opinion not?
Well, I definitely agree with you that it is not solved. We have, in a way, temporary solution for the concrete case of the San Bernardino investigation. But the question is open, and basically you have two directions. One direction is that we preserve some sort of semi-anarchy, if I can say it, and then all of the key players will basically invest in their encryption and decryption technology. That's one line. Therefore, Apple will invest in their encryption technology, governments will invest in their decryption technology, and the private users will also invest, use the, in this case, Apple tools. That's one direction, and most likely, knowing the political dynamics in modern society, most likely development. The other, which I think would be preferable solution, is that there is a serious debate, and that the global community, or in this case, United States or European countries or other countries, all countries will face this dilemma, create some sort of arrangement under what circumstances government will have a right to access the data. As you know, we discussed a lot that there were quite a few points on which FBI had a strong case, and the question of unbreakable devices. But my preferable option would be that the all key players sit around the table and say, okay, let us make some sort of a social contract, and let us say, make the clear mechanism under what circumstances data can be accessed. Therefore, you can have this techno-anarchy direction, where if I have a stronger encryption, I will be better protected. Or you have this, the other direction, which is more, let's say, social contract, legal discussion. And I cannot, my instinct tells me that the first line will be probably the most likely development worldwide, unfortunately.
But the response was, we have found a solution through someone, I don't know, maybe there are some clarification about that person. Was it someone, a private man or from a company, or it's a little bit from someone who is following seriousness of Americans, seriousness of FBI. It's something really funny to hear from them that we have found solution from some word in between brackets. I don't know. I don't remember the word, but.
Well, as a matter of fact, officially, we don't know how they found the solution. They just informed us that they found the solution. That's not clear how they found the solution, or I don't know, Richard, if you know.
No, that's right. They said a third party that they don't want to identify. Now, I just read a new blog post, which is very interesting. The US government has a policy of reviewing any, what they call zero-day exploits, any security flaws that they find, and then deciding whether they should be made public so that they can be fixed or they should be kept secret or not. And this will probably, or maybe not, apply to this particular case. But apparently Apple now could sue the government, requesting the government to reveal the flaw so that Apple then could fix the flaw. So this may actually only be the beginning of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Richard, do we have any comment from...
Somebody says it was Israel.
Yeah, I was just about to read out that comment from our colleague Vladimir Adunovic. It was reported that an Israeli company helped with cracking the phone. It is also possible that FBI approached NSA to crack. NSA has advanced technology involving hardware methods. We also received an update from Indonesia on the news items that they wanted to share with us. So there are 3 basic updates. One is the Indonesian EIT law concerning civil society. The second one is IPv6 updates for the private sector, and the third one is over-the-top services concerning the government. We will maybe share a little bit more on these 3 updates from Indonesia as soon as we get information from there.
Probably over-the-top services are quite topical because there was an anti-Uber protest in Jakarta, and there is a heated debate about also taxation and this sharing economy, which is the phrase now introduced by European Commission. Okay, that's fine. If you don't have any other question or comment, I would like then to thank colleagues in Jakarta, and I'm sure the sound will work better next time, and I'm also sure that you have a good discussion internally and that you use this occasion to have briefings on the internal developments in Indonesia. Marilia is alone today at Rio Hub, but then she will continue with the Brazilian hubs. Brazil is a big country, and there will be consultations among the different Brazilian hubs, and I would like to thank our remote participants for their for good discussion and good comments, and friends here in Jakarta, in Geneva, who, in spite of the sort of holiday season in Geneva, joined us today in situ here in persons and helped to our discussion. I wish you good continuation of discussion in Jakarta and Rio, and we will continue our discussion here with some sandwiches if they and drinks and refreshments. Have a nice day. Bye bye. Ciao. Thank you. Thank you.